And welcome back to the Today with Tally podcast. Folks, we have a great show in store for you today. We sit down with some psilocybin experts, folks. That's right. We are going to talk medicine and the psychedelic treatment that is becoming more mainstream in the United States of America. Now, this stuff has been around since about 8600 BC, or maybe even further back than that, folks. When there's plants being grown, well, so is this stuff. This is all natural mushrooms, plants, you name it. Now, back in the 1800s, scientists and psychiatrists began to discover new kinds of healing mechanisms, aka drugs, whatever you want to call it, such as psilocybin, and subsequently became advocates of psychedelic medicine. Psilocybin today is being used to treat a variety of different psychiatric and neurological conditions, such as addiction, pain, depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress. And without further ado, I want to invite our three experts in. Today's going to be a panel, if you will, to learn more about this psychedelic type treatment. Infinite Healing. How are you guys doing? Look, there's three of you guys here today. I know you, Donnie. The third gentleman, I know we've spoken in the past, but I don't recall your name. But folks, welcome to the program. How are you all today?
Thank you.
Doing great. Good. Thanks for having us.
And before I start, I want to get that gentleman's last name. I'm sorry.
My name's Shannon Tor.
Shannon.
Yes.
Perfect. And then, of course, everybody knows Donnie. You know, Donnie's just, you know, he's always the man of the hour. And then, of course, Ken's the OG in this stuff. He's been around. He's been around for a little while. Not since, 8600 BC, but
close. Pretty close.
So we don't know that.
yeah, no kidding. Well, maybe when he eats the mushrooms, he goes to 8600 BC. I don't know.
Yeah. Never know.
So, gentlemen, look, I wanted to have you guys on because this is a very fast-growing field of new medicine, if you will, and I call it new because it's starting to become more mainstream here in the United States of America and really around the world, to where that thought of the past. That's bad. That's drugs. Oh no, that's it wasn't accepted. It wasn't acceptable. To do something like this, especially in high school. Oh, they're tripping. They're stoners and this and that. And we have found that this can be used as a life-saving mechanism to treat so many psychiatric conditions that a lot of Americans go through on a day-to-day basis. I mean, look at our veteran population, folks. We've got 22 to 40 American veterans a day that are taking their lives as an epidemic. And if we could find a way to help treat these veterans in a natural way that works, hey, why not, right? Why not try to do this? I mean, what do we have to lose? This stuff has been around forever. Now, look, my first question coming out of the gates here is we just had an election. And RFK Jr. is pledging to every American out there to make America healthy again. Do you guys know of anything that RFK Jr. may be doing as an agenda item in this next Trump administration?
Donnie? Yeah, he's looking to free up psychedelics in particular, this class of medicines. It was the first thing he named in his agenda when he did his press release, even prior to being named a part of the administration.
Now, when you say free up, can you explain exactly by?
We're not exactly sure what his perspective is, but hopefully it can mimic what we have here in Colorado. Because 2 years ago, the people in Colorado voted to decriminalize this entire class of medicines, especially the natural versions of it. So that's what we've been working with, is particularly DMT, mescaline, and psilocybin. So if we could mimic that on the national level, that would do amazing things for the veterans of this country and anyone else struggling with addiction, trauma, PTSD. So if we can get together and make a push for that together towards the federal level, that could help millions of people.
What are those three again? I want you to repeat those to me.
The ones that we mainly work with are psilocybin, dimethyltryptamine, and mescaline.
Okay, so what's the difference between these three?
I'll let the chemist take this one. Yeah.
So DMT, there's a couple different forms of DMT, but the one that we use in particular is called NN-DMT. That's a particular molecule of DMT. It's natural to our bodies. We actually create this molecule in our bodies. And so that's a wonderful thing because we're just matching our natural chemistry. When you're talking about psilocybin, you're talking about 4-hydroxy-DMT. So it's a slightly different molecule. And then when you're talking about mescaline, you're talking about, and I might get this one a little off, but it's 3,4,5 phenylalanine is, I believe, the name for the technical name for that. So there's slightly different molecules, but all of them do something slightly different in our body. But what we find is that these three used in combination and or separate at microdose levels can provide some amazing results to people. So as an example, DMT just seems to break down the walls that we may have in terms of our ability to heal ourselves. Whereas mushrooms have a tendency to, or psilocybin or 4-hydroxy-DMT has a tendency to make us more introspective and think about what our process is and what we're doing. And then the mescaline, I'll just call it that because it's a little easier to pronounce. The mescaline has a tendency to make you extroverted, right? So instead of mushrooms make you introverted, mescaline makes you extroverted. So all of these little nuances of struggles that we have in our society, these seem to be able to address them. And all of these materials have been around since plants have been around. DMT in particular is part of every plant and every animal on the planet, right? So there could be some slightly different versions like you see with psilocybin, but DMT is part of everything. It drives us all together. It's literally the molecule that is common to every plant and animal on the planet.
So would it be safe to say that you can use a combination of all three of these to treat one patient?
Sure. Yeah, it just depends on the patient and their needs, right? So what we're trying to do is assess what works better for them, use small doses of these things to try to figure out which ones are going to give them the biggest breakthroughs.
So what if somebody goes in there and they're a level 10 on anxiety, depression, and they're done, they're checking out, compared to somebody who's coming in who has maybe a that might be a younger kid that might be just starting to go through some phases of anxiety and is more down like a 1 or a 2. How do you treat those two completely opposite spectrums there, but they both want to go the psilocybin route?
So if you come in at all 10s, I'm not going to recommend that you use psilocybin. If you have suicidal thoughts, last thing I'm going to do is give you psilocybin and send you home. So in that case, we would sit you down and do a DMT session. A DMT session only lasts 10 minutes. You're super sober when you leave and you can drive home. But the DMT is what we found that works best for ruminating thoughts, suicidal thoughts, urge to use drugs and alcohol. We can pretty much take you out of that mindset, interrupt that mindset within 10 minutes.
So if you can interrupt that, so if you can get there in 10 minutes, how long does it last?
So the session is 10 minutes. And then when you leave, you get residual effects. And the residual effects can literally last hours, days, or weeks, sometimes months off one dose.
This class of psychedelics breaks down the default mode network in the brain and then grants you neuroplasticity over the course of sometimes weeks, up to 12 to 16 weeks for some people, in fact, where the brain can redo your neural pathways and give you new thought patterns. and accept new ways of thinking that don't always end in addiction or suicide or use or anger. So it takes the old pathways that are sometimes trauma locked that you just can't break on your own. It explodes them apart, so to speak, and then allows you to create a whole new system of a way of thinking that ends in happiness, peace, and all these good emotions, to where a lot of people just weren't able to do that prior.
In addition, I'll add one other thing to that. It actually, DMT in particular, stops brain cell death, right? So not only is it cause neuroplasticity, which means it's helping you rewire, right, your neural network in your brain and in your body, but it actually alleviates and slows down or stops the death of cells, right? So it's a sledgehammer. I mean, it's incredible what it can do for people. And right now, DMT is actually in stage 2 clinical trials for both Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
Interesting. Now, Ken, you said that you wouldn't treat somebody that was in, a crisis type situation, or is, say, chronic, when it comes to anxiety and depression and perhaps some ideation that they may be experiencing that has put these folks in a very dark place, and they come to you for help. And you said, look, I'm not going to even think about giving these guys psilocybin. I'm going to start them on the DMT. Why is that?
Well, because the DMT is more short-lived. And so the psilocybin, you need to give somebody like that a little bigger dose. But it could last 4 to 6 hours. And during that time, you're thinking about a lot of things. With DMT, you're really not thinking about anything. So it disrupts that suicidal ideation long enough to where as soon as you leave here after doing your session, you're going to your therapist. We're not mental health professionals. We're not therapists. We're not doctors.
So sometimes this can last the patient days. Sometimes
The
it can last
residual
weeks.
effect. Yeah, the residual effect can last hours, days, or weeks.
So kind of what we see is that when people first come in, well, let's take someone that's off the Richter scale, right? Suicidal thoughts at a 10, right? We'll give them a DMT session and then tell them to monitor their thoughts, right? And normally ask them to come in probably twice that first week and probably twice the second week as well for sessions. After that, they've started to work on themselves, and all of a sudden that time between sessions extends itself naturally. So it might go for the first 2 weeks, twice a week, the next 2 weeks, once a week. After that, it might be once a month, right? And then that can extend out to indefinite, right? And it happens relatively fast. It's wild how fast it happens, in fact.
So is this stuff like, I mean, some of these folks might have to come back, 3 times a month, or sometimes they may be good for a month or two, depending on how their body reacts to it. Is this something that's like covered under insurance, or is this like a cash only type deal?
No, this is, so we don't charge for psychedelics. We charge for the consultation. So you can't come here and buy stuff. You have to be consulted. You pay a consultation fee. But I'll tell you another thing. 90% of our clientele are referred over here by therapists, psychologists, MDs, nurse practitioners. So these are the people that see their clients that are suicidal, can't do anything for them, and then refer them over here. So they're monitored. It's not like we're just winging it over here and just dosing suicidal people and combat vets. And, we're doing this in conjunction with their therapist and their primary caregiver.
I mean, once you start getting these clinicians on board, and these doctors and psychologists and psychiatrists, I mean, because the psychiatrists are the ones that are prescribing the pain med, or the anxiety meds and the depression meds. And if they start to say, hey, look, let's give this a try, that's going to be hitting big pharma big time in the pocket. Have they come out against this, in any way? I mean, is there going to be a battle, so to say, in America between this new way? And I'm not going to call it new. I'm just going to call it a more mainstream way of being treated because, again, of the bad messaging that we have all been programmed to think. I mean, look, I'm a DARE kid. I went through the DARE program. So, I mean, they scared me straight, and these were part of the you do not touch this, type stuff. But
to some extent, you got to call it something different, right? We want to refer to these things as drugs. This is the original medicine, right? This medicine existed long before anyone synthesized some white little pill and handed it to you and told you it was going to fix you, right? We don't tell anyone we're fixing anyone. We tell them they're all going to fix themselves. So it's a mind shift change. And to your point, yeah, they're gonna try to get in front of it. They're trying to right now, and they want to make it all synthetic instead of naturally plant-based, which is absolutely horrible. In fact, we've been on conversations with people running clinical trials in this up in Denver, and they're not having any success with the synthetic psilocybin, or barely, right? And so the problem there is they're using synthetic materials. And when we make it synthetically, it's not the same as when Mother Nature makes it. And I could go into the diatribe on it as I'm a chemist, but I don't know that it's relevant at the moment. The bottom line is that if you use a natural plant-based medicine, which is what these things are, then the effects are fantastic, and you're probably up in the 90% of people being helped range, not down in the 51%. So in a clinical trial, I'll just say this one piece. In order for a drug to be accepted by the FDA, it needs to be 51% effective. That means 49% of the time it can kill somebody, right? But 51% of the time I felt 1% better. So, hey, it's approved, right? So, we got to get out of that mindset. Everything we need is on this planet. We do not need to synthesize anything, and I won't synthesize anything ever for somebody.
So you're trying to tell me that Big Pharma sees this coming down range and they say, how can we dabble in this so they can create their own synthetic type of healing through the natural remedies that you guys are all natural type side. And Big Pharma says, we want to play too. We're going to create this synthetic.
They're just creating another pharmaceutical product is what they're doing.
That's the only thing they've ever done, right? Where do you think all the medicines they use came from? They all came from plants.
And so obviously with by them going full synthetic, I mean, there's going to be some side effects that are going to be far, far greater than anything that would be on the natural side.
Amen.
Exactly. We met with a doctor from the Colorado State Mental Hospital the other day, and he was really concerned about the direction that a lot of the research is going, even since it is going almost fully exclusively synthetic. And he spoke about how a lot of the benefits could be lost as well, because you have an entourage effect that happens with the other components of these plants and these fungi that you'll miss out on if they're synthesizing and making a fake version of it, if you will. And that was one of his main concerns. And that's one of the reasons why he got involved with us, is because Shannon and Ken's insistence on everything staying natural. And you'll find with most of the people who work in that industry at the practitioner level, the psychiatrists, therapists, the doctors, the nurse practitioners, they've gotten over to our side of this thing because they're just not satisfied with the weapons, if you will, that they had in the past. The SSRIs, the SSNIs, the anti-psychs that they're working with, they're just not happy with the results they've been having the last 30 years. And once they discovered that some of us had access to these medicines in a pharmaceutical grade level to keep it natural and have a chemist that can keep it at a pharmaceutical quality level, has been the advantage that the practitioners were looking for. So they're willing to come on board and refer patients over, and we're seeing results that they just weren't having with the weapons that they had in the past.
So say if you got a guy that comes in there that's taking 20 pills a day out of, 10, 11, 12 different pill bottles, which is very, very, real. I mean, that's me. I mean, and sometimes more. If I were to begin taking psilocybins and DMT, how would I have to at some point start, you know, say, hey, look, I want to come off my pills, or I want to try to at least come off, say, I want to cut it in half. Of course, I know you guys aren't doctors and all that stuff. I would have to go with my medical provider, and we would have to put some plan together. But what if that doctor isn't susceptible to that? Like, say I go to the VA and I'm like, hey, look, I want to start coming off some of my meds. I'm thinking about maybe doing some DMT treatments or some psilocybin. Now, I'm going to get immediate pushback because this stuff right now is not approved through the VA, even though that they are talking about it, but they're not talking about the all natural. They're talking about the synthetic because, you know, of the, you know, the relationship, say that the federal government has with big pharma. Now, say if I'm on all those pills, how long does it take? Like, do I need to start cutting them in thirds or quarters to start coming off of this? To get on to that, have you had any folks come in with that same exact model, if you will?
Yeah, that's what we do every day.
Yeah.
So a lot of these doctors are sending people over here, or therapists, because they're treatment resistant. Nothing's working anymore. Every one of the people that we're getting off of pharmaceuticals is under a direction of a doctor or a psychiatrist.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some people that just go, hey, I'm just going to start weaning myself. I don't care what the VA says. But another thing that we have is, because we're over 45 miles away from a VA center, clinic, a lot of the people here in our community can get their own primary doctor. So they don't have to travel up to Colorado Springs or Denver. And then we hook them up with one of our doctors. So again, we're working in conjunction with these people. We're not doctors. We're not therapists. We're not going to tell people how to wean off this kind of stuff. Even alcohol, you know,
Yeah.
we let the doctor kind of decide that.
It's a two-way referral system, so we can get consultation patients over to appropriate professionals in the field. Part of what these guys are doing is creating a network of people all around us. And that's a big part of what I do for them, is going out and recruiting and finding people, therapists that we can have people get connected with, because some of these people are coming in without a therapist because they've already given up on the whole system. They're coming in without a doctor because they've given up on that part of the system. And when they come to us, that's a part of the process, is being hooked in with other professionals. It just isn't some flippant, hey, go dose with psychedelics and see if you're okay afterwards. It's what is a plan we can help you put in place with a network of people around you, including peer specialists that you can go talk to multiple times a week, hang out in groups of people who are doing the exact same thing. So a massive support network needs to go along with these types of medicines. And that's something that we've strived to provide from the beginning. In fact, it was kind of what started this all off, was Ken's work with veterans and then my work with the addiction people. And we created the Society of the Sacred Stoned Apes out of the gate in order to bring a support network together of people to where you always had somebody to call. You always had somebody to meet with for your mental health that could fully relate to what you had going on. And that's a big component of this.
Well, I'd like to add too, I'd like Donnie to take it a little further, because Donnie started his own radio show on our local AM conservative radio, which is unheard of. So I'd like Donnie to talk about that and what he's doing with his sober living home. And
yeah, we have maybe the nation's first psychedelic sober living home. And that's a place where people can come to after they've gone to detox and rehab to integrate back into society. So it's not just, hey, you got out of rehab, now we'll kick you back into the same environment you were in before. They can come to this house that we've set up, and we've got a bunch of like-minded individuals who have the ability to take these medicines to rewire their brain. So again, their thoughts aren't thinking use. So many times people will go to rehab and it takes a year or two before they stop thinking about using all the time. And we've found that these medicines can shorten the amount of time it takes to do that. And then, yeah, we started a radio station here locally that is the only fully dedicated psychedelic radio station hosted by a cop, for sure, right? Because we've got a wonderful guy who helps us host on the other side of things, who is an ex-officer.
Narcotics.
And we talk psychedelics every week, every Thursday at 9:05 a.m. on the 1400 a.m. here in Southern Colorado. And then we blast it out on my Facebook Live, and we're getting between typically 2,000 and 10,000 viewers on that. And it's called the Recovery Ape Radio. And every week we bring in some kind of professional in the field who's working with people who use psychedelics or who are interested in using psychedelics as part of the recovery plan.
So that's AM 1400?
AM 1400.
KLRN.
KRLN.
KLRN every Thursday at 9:05.
Yep. And then my personal page on Facebook, Donnie Martinez in Canyon City, they can search that out, and it's a live cast, and they can watch us live in the studios, or recovery_ape on Instagram. And that's where we post all of our highlight reels with people saying just some great snippets about what they're doing for the industry at the time in concern of how psychedelics are helping people.
We have several people that went on the show and said that they were suicidal until they did DMT and then started working with psilocybin.
People who are walking around at a 10. Go ahead.
I want to get back to the legislative side, because that's where it all begins and ends in this country. Like, you're in Colorado, so you're lucky to be able to dose this to folks that need it. But in other states, you're going to jail, right?
Yep. Right.
Okay. So this is hard to package. So are we in a better position now with the federal government even talking about it, even though it's synthetic? Or is it worse that they're talking about it now in the synthetic type way? Because again, the medicine isn't going to be what it's supposed to be. And so Colorado passed this for an all natural way of healing. But right now at the federal level with current legislation, it is not the natural product. It is the synthetic. So what I'm saying is it good that they're talking about it at the federal level, or is it bad?
So we went through the same thing with medical marijuana. You know, we were blessed to be able to use it, you know, for children with epilepsy, stuff like that. The problem was everybody flocked to Colorado after that and basically made it hard for people to get it here in Colorado. What we did find with all that is, because we've been talking about it for about 15 years, the federal government, the DEA, is going to reclassify marijuana as a Schedule 3, I believe, in February. So they did try coming out with something called Epidiolex, which is a pharmaceutical grade CBD oil for kids with epilepsy. It really didn't do anything for too many people. People were reverting back to full spectrum CBD oils because it did have a little bit of THC in it. So I think it's good that we're talking about it. You know, even psychedelics, even if they're talking about making them synthetic, because this is a good time to debate why we don't think that we should have synthetic natural medicines, because it's not going to work the same way as the natural stuff is working.
Yeah, I'll add to that. Having the conversation is the starting point, right? So we need to be having a conversation, right? And so, of course, they're trying to dictate the direction of the conversations, what they always do. But the point is, without that conversation, we can't even make any progress. So while we don't like the idea of talking synthetics, and we knew that was the direction they were going to go. That's the reason that we push so hardly the other direction, to let people know that, there are alternatives to these things, and their alternatives are natural. And these are the materials that have been used for tens of thousands of years. These were medicines before any three-letter agency was ever created. That goes back 120 years, right? These go back tens of thousands of years. So you tell me what's real medicine, right? It's very simple, but it needs to get into the collective unconscious, right? And the conversation puts it in everyone's mind. So I'm never gonna, shun the conversation. It's the way we get the doors open, right? My mom didn't used to believe in what marijuana could do for you, right? And now she sees the potential benefits of it. And she was, again, one of those people that was like, basically, if you're smoking a joint, then you're going to be in the gutter, with a needle in your arm next day, right? And she's totally changed her view on that. But we need to change that view, because we've been manipulated heavily in terms of our views of what a medicine looks like. I use this meme all the time, right? Show someone a picture of a pill and I said, you call this medicine, I call it a drug. Then I'll show you a picture of a leaf and I'll say, I call this medicine, you call it a drug, right? And so we gotta break that paradigm.
Yeah. I mean, we have been gaslit. I mean, for generations. I mean,
120 years.
So I will say that a lot of our referrals come in, and we work with all, cannabinoids, psychedelics, whatever, but we have a big toolbox. The problem is most of our clientele that are referred over here are between 60 and 90 years old, little old blue-haired ladies with walkers and oxygen. They know about cannabis. So they want nothing to do with a full spectrum CBD oil, because they don't want to get high. They don't want nothing to do starting off with psilocybin, because we tell them you want to take it at home, a little small microdose, and don't do anything. Don't go anywhere for 4 hours, just in case it's too much for you. They don't want nothing to do with that. Then you bring up DMT. It's only 10 minutes and you can walk out of here. And all of them go to the DMT. There's no stigma attached to it, because they don't know what it is. DMT is the holy grail of hallucinogenics, and they don't know anything about that. So that's what they want to do. And then once we get them dosed with DMT, then they're more open to this full spectrum CBD oils, the microdose psilocybin. But literally, we got to use the DMT first. And fortunately, most of these elderly people don't have a clue what it is. They just know that their doctor sends them over here to do it.
right. So I want to go back to the legislative side again, because that's what's needed. Like we were talking about, the conversation has been started in DC, and that's the first step on trying to get anything legalized from sea to shining sea, and instead of just Colorado, or a handful of states. Now, even though the synthetic is something that, of course, you wouldn't recommend, because it's just that. It's synthetic. And you guys are an all natural healing, folks. So if a prescriber in a different state, or say the VA, says, we're going to approve this, but at a synthetic level, would that synthetic dose be a better choice than today's anxiety medicine?
We don't know that. We don't know. So part of the problem when you start talking about synthetics, I was going to avoid going here, but we'll go here. There's a synthesis process. When we make something, like humans make it, physically make it, right? A chemical. When we make materials, there's a function called chirality that occurs, right? And chirality in Latin means mirror, right? So I'll show you my hands. That's chiral. Our hands are chiral. They're not identical, right? They don't work that way. They're just chiral. They're mirror images of each other. When we synthesize something, we get 50-50 mixtures of these materials. When God makes it, I'll just call it out, it's a 99% left-handed. So it's not the same thing. You're getting 50% of a material that may be detrimental or not effective or doing something else to our body. And then, as Donnie had already mentioned, you get some entourage's effects, because when you're taking a plant medicine, you're rarely taking one chemical, right? It's not always isolated. It's a blend of those chemicals, right? So what happens is, just like with our health, when we're eating good organic vegetables and fruits, it's not just the beta carotene coming out of the carrot that matters. It's all the other chemicals that help that beta carotene be effective. So we start to lose out on those things. And so they struggle more and more to show statistical significance when they're actually testing them. We don't see any problem whatsoever getting that statistical significance. And we're actually compiling all that data right now. But this is, again, it's a mind shift. What is the original medicine on the planet? And it's not some dude in a white lab coat or white butcher coat synthesizing something and then saying, here, take this. You know, you can look at LSD and do the same thing. The original was called LSA, not LSD. LSD is a synthetic version, right? And LSA has a much better effect for people. So it goes on and on and on. We need to re-educate ourselves in terms of what a medicine looks like.
Dude, I've got to give a shout out to one of our show sponsors today, Bass Bros Bees LLC. Look at that. Ah! This right here, folks, is the potion. It's the one drop natural lotion, folks. It smells like pina coladas. Hydrates and moisturizes your skin, makes everything pop. And they even got chapstick. And then to top it off, dude, look at this. Oh yeah. There is not a better product out there right now. They even got stuff for dogs, like their paws and stuff. And the cool thing about Bass Bros Bees, dude, they're veteran owned. You don't gotta take it from me, dude. Take it from yourself. And I guarantee Bob is so easy to work with. You don't like the product, send them back, he'll probably refund you. But you will not have that problem, folks. Go to BassBrosBees.com. That's BassBrosBees.com. Bass Bro! Yeah! Come on! That's incredible right there to even, think about that, because of all the fillers that they're going to put into that synthetic. Like you said, it may be 50% of this, but then we're going to fill it with a bunch of other garbage, like dog food, like dried dog food out of a bag. It's all just fillers. It's not really food. It's just stuff, that they just compile and grind up, and they fillers. This we're gonna throw 800 things into this, and they all don't really mean anything. They're just fillers. They're going to expand in your gut, and it's going to make you feel like you're full, and you're kind of done eating, and it doesn't really have that nutritional value, if you will. And I'm kind of looking at that through what a synthetic version of a pill may look like. But really, at the end of the day, is that synthetic pill going to be a better alternative, is what I'm saying, than, say, your average, anxiety pill or pain pill or muscle relaxant? Is it going to be a safer choice? And again, we don't know that yet, because there's not enough research and development done on that side. We do know that what you guys are doing, is, safe and effective. Would that be an inaccurate statement?
Oh yeah, it's been used for thousands of years. So DMT is half of what's in ayahuasca, right? So they've been using this down in Peru, down in South America, since the beginning of time, until they were quote unquote civilized by Europeans. These nasty, aboriginals that were so peaceful that they hardly had any weapons. So you got to look at it a little different. So I'll give you the easy example that we've been poking around with lately. If you look at a cigarette, there's 600 chemicals in a cigarette. Did you know nicotine's actually good for you? It's the other 599 that aren't good for you and addict you. It's not the nicotine. So nicotine is also high in tomatoes, celery, and eggplant. I've never heard of anybody craving eggplant so bad that they're going to go freak out, right? So I mean, you got to look at things differently. We got to reprogram ourselves, right? Plants are medicines. That's the way you got to think about it. All plants are medicines. Not necessarily good for all of us all the time, but that's what we got to think about.
Well, the government doesn't want us using this stuff because we can grow it. We can process it ourselves. They can't, it's harder for them to control it. The only thing they can do is, ban it, outlaw it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
this whole class of medicine still sits at the highest scheduling available, right? These medicines are still considered with no medical use and with a deadly threat. That's how the federal government currently views them. And we know the exact opposite to be true. So we're waiting on them to reclassify these medicines now. And maybe that's the hope that we have with the synthetics, that they can lead the way to getting these reclassified. And maybe that'll eventually be the push at the federal level, that since some of these pharmaceutical companies are working with these synthetics and they have a little leverage in Washington, then maybe they can take them from a classification of a 1 down to a 3, kind of like how marijuana has done over the last 15 years. And then if that can happen, then the natural medicines can come to the forefront, because they're just going to naturally come to the forefront of this battle by being so much more effective than the synthetics. It's just going to take some time.
Well, just remember, CBD used to be a Schedule 1. That they're saying it's highly addictive and no medicinal value to it. And we know that's a lie.
Well, I mean, like Shannon was talking about with the cigarettes, and the nicotine, the 500, different chemicals in it, or 499 different chemicals in it are bad for you, but the one is good for you, and that's the actual nicotine itself. But the other 499 components to that cigarette are the addictive components, right?
Carcinogens.
Right. These are the things that tear us up.
That's the stuff that's going to keep you sick and in hospitals, paying those fees. Big Pharma wants a comfortable but sick America to make they want you comfortable, and they want you sitting in a chair. They want you to be dependent upon them, but still good enough to go out there and provide for your family. So you're paying into the system and you're paying taxes and so on and so forth. That's where they come in, and they have that working relationship, if you will, with the federal government. And if you really start to connect the dots on that, it's scary. It's super scary to find out exactly how everything works, and it comes full circle. And wow, yeah, it truly is, man. Because I was doing research on this, and I didn't see any addictive component in this. I mean, is it addictive?
No, it's not. We actually had a local MD who helps us compile addiction potential, because we were asking the same question, right? And so he had, I got to ballpark it, on his chart, probably 40 materials. Alcohol being one of the worst, right? Horrible from an addictive perspective, just because it's so available. But all the way at the very end, down at the 1 percentile, was psilocybin. And he's like, I can't even find anything on DMT. So, all of these psychedelics, nobody, and we can speak to this from the work that Terence McKenna did back in the day. We can speak to the fact that as they were dosing people and literally injecting DMT into people, they were not showing any effects of addiction at all. And they were doing it every half hour, right? They just keep going at it in these studies. So there has not been any addictive properties shown. In fact, it breaks your addiction to other things, which could be spooky to other industries, right? Donnie pulled someone in probably, maybe almost a month ago. Guy was on the way to the bar that's a couple doors down from us. He pulls him in the back, doses him. This guy went home. He was on his way into the bar. That's true story, right? And this guy was like, I don't feel like I need it anymore, and went home, right? So you want to talk about disruption. I can't even find something that's more disruptive than that.
Another powerful anecdote was just last week when we were having our Society of the Sacred Stoned Apes recovery meeting. So a room full of addicts, right? Trying to get better, trying to get off drugs. And we've been dosing them with DMT. And a lot of times we offer it after the session because we do a CBT, a cognitive behavioral therapy session with everybody in the group. And then at the end, we've been offering to dose them with DMT. Last week, when we offered to dose them with DMT, not a single person dosed. They all said, no, I think I'm good this week. I'm just in such a great spot that I don't want to change that in any way, shape, or form. A whole group of addicts said no to the thing that was getting them better and making them feel better, just because it has this anti-addictive component that lets you know when you're just doing okay.
Yeah, I mean, because that's part of the whole process. You're treating people that have addiction. You're treating people that do have anxiety and post-traumatic stress and depression, and all these other mental health conditions that so many Americans are faced with in today's world. Now, I want to ask if you've never experienced this spirit world before, and you take yourself into this dream, if you will. Could this end up being a gateway drug because of the feeling that you have when you are in this session?
No. So Donnie and I are both in long-term recovery. I was heavily addicted to pharmaceuticals for 20 years. He was addicted to
Number of
a
things.
number of things. So Donnie and I have these pens all the time. We have psilocybin, we have mescaline. I do DMT about once every 4 or 5 months. I have it on me all the time. I have bad days. I could go in my office and hit it and be better. I don't. I respect this stuff, just like most of our clients respect it. And this isn't something that leaves our sight. You have to come in here and do it. It's controlled the whole time. We don't send you home with DMT.
Because you need to make sure that they're not even having any adverse reactions. You need to make sure that they're getting enough of a dose, or hey, we got to cut it back a little bit. Of course, that you probably start really small and then kind of just working your
That's
way up.
exactly how we
Exactly
do it. We use the least amount necessary to give somebody a benefit.
Well, and there's pieces of this that become more of that mystical, kind of where you were going, Tally, right? So it's this, we call it. You said you went into a dream. I would argue this is the dream. That's just my view of things, right? I think we come down here to have an experience, and that world's the real world. But that's the way. That's just my view. But what we're trying to do is, especially when someone's new to this, we're not trying to throw someone in the deep end and submerge them, right? What we're trying to do is dip their toe in the water and let them understand that there's more going on here than we're able to see. If you just simply look at the spectrum of visible light, we can see like 3% of it, right? So what's happening in the other 97%? Right. And that's what you start to kind of reconnect yourself with your soul. And as that happens, you realign yourself. And I think that communication happens smoother, this is just, again, my view. And as that communication happens smoother, I think that you start to make better choices, because you're starting to see, hey, this is helping me. That's hurting me. We get people bounce out and they'll say things, all kinds of crazy stuff. I think Ken had someone the other day. Why don't you speak to the story of the kratom?
So yeah, we had a husband and wife come in, and we dose them. So they do peer support recovery groups and stuff like that, and they're pretty fresh in their recovery. So I dosed them both, and one thing, everything else lowered. Urge to use, pain, anger. Their anxiety went from a 2 to an 8, which doesn't happen. Initially, you may feel a little uncomfortable or a little different, where you feel a little anxious, but then that levels out. So they came out of it, because Donnie and I were saying, this never happens. Are you on gabapentin? And then I asked them if they were on kratom. And they both looked at each other and they're like, yeah, we're having a hard time getting off kratom. Kratom's a natural plant that has opiate-like effects. So a lot of people will use that to wean off of opiates. So basically the DMT snitched them out by basically letting us know that their anxiety went up. We asked them that question. They came right out and said, hey, I think it's a kratom.
And they said they're still addicts, right? So they were like, we still have work to do. So again, it's that realignment of yourself with yourself. And it seems to have that effect in the way that is very individual, right? So it's everybody reviewing themselves and then coming up with that next game plan to how to be, a term we use around here a lot is we're just trying to make humans more human again. Like not living in that.
People are using it as harm reduction, but I've had to wean quite a few people off of kratom over the years because they didn't really understand it. And even with the psilocybin microdoses, we're recommending people take one every 3 to 5 days. So you can't build up a tolerance, so you don't get dependent on it.
I mean, it's really just changing one's thought process. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
100% recalibrating somebody's brain, basically.
Yep.
That's the beauty of the DMT microdosing process that we discovered and stumbled upon, is we can give someone such a low dose that they don't really hallucinate at all. And then it gives them that extended residual period for their brain to rewire itself. So it does have an advantage over really anything else that we've found. It comes close to ibogaine effect, which is another psychedelic that's used in this realm, but that's a 2 to 3 day huge tripping effect. People go away and journey and see all kinds of things, and you're out of it for 2 or 3 days. And the reason why they use it for people with major PTSD is because ibogaine can give you a 12-week period where your brain can rewire itself. We've found that during this 6 to 10 minute microdose session with DMT, that you can get an as good or better effect in the brain and its ability to rewire itself and lead you to new places and new ways of thinking.
And I think a lot of that has to do is because it's such a small dose and it only lasts so long, people can process their experience a lot easier. If you're on something like acid, ayahuasca, ibogaine, there's a lot to process, and a lot of people don't want to be out of control for that long.
Yeah, when you're looking at some of these long durations, ayahuasca is a great example. Ibogaine's an awesome example. Is everybody ready to deal with all their trauma since the time they were 5 in one sitting, right? Or do you want to do it slowly while you're living in this world, right? And so you start thinking about it, and you're like, whoa, I'm going to be rolling on the ground, and I need a shaman around me to help me work my way through this because I'm going to have it all thrown at me. We view it like, let's take the low-hanging fruit, show you a new path, and that way you can start moving on your own. And then you're doing it in this realm, right? You're not doing it all in the other realm, so to speak. And so it's kind of this nice blend of come in, reset yourself, go do some work. Come back in, reset yourself, go do some more work. Right. And this is what leads to people extending that time in between treatments so quickly.
What is the most common addiction you see walk through your doors in today's America?
Pharmaceuticals and alcohol. We work with a lot of fentanyl, meth, cigarettes.
Alcohol seems to be number one.
Yeah, I think it's alcohol. It's everywhere. Canyon's rough for alcohol. I don't know, like every other city might be a little bit different mixed. But you can go to a drive-through liquor store here, and they're everywhere, right? So it's alcohol's tough because it's so readily available and it's used as a social means, right? People go out, have a few drinks, sit at a bar, just so that they can be social, right? So we need to break that paradigm as well, right? And find places for people to go so that they can just sit around and BS and be in other contact with humans without feeling like they need to have a drink.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, I barely drink anymore since my injury in 2016. I used to crush beers, and dip Copenhagen for a very long time, for probably half of my life. And then, when I got sick, I was living in a chair, and, of course you're not going to, crave the Copenhagen or the alcohol. So I kind of just kicked them both. It was a good thing, and I haven't really gone back. I haven't gone back to the Copenhagen, and, and every now and again I'll have a whiskey or, a glass of wine or whatever. But you're right. I mean, if somebody invites me to go out to a bar on a Friday night and, I stop in for an hour or two, I feel obligated to, let me get an old fashioned or a glass of red wine, and do I need it? No, it's just because I'm not going to drink a water with them at the bar.
Right.
And having that house, like you were saying, and, your clubs and stuff to where you can go hang out with like-minded individuals and not feel like, you know what, I'm here to make myself better in life. And I don't need whiskey or beer to make me feel good when I have all these other alternatives now that are going to improve not only my life, but my mental well-being, and restructure and recalibrate that brain to make you think like, no, I don't need that. I feel fine. I'm going to have that glass of water. And I think that's important to understand, but that's going to be generations to even be considered upon breaking that alcohol type addiction in this country. I mean, we've got bars on every corner. We've got liquor stores on every corner. And
We've been
depending on
taught
the
this.
socioeconomic status, the lower it is, the more bars you got.
Right.
The higher, the higher
let me
the
give you a quick
socio-
example, Tally.
Yeah.
So we were all at a charity event at a bar about 3 months ago, right? And there was probably it was a full table of people, like-minded people like ourselves. So probably 12 of us.
Mhm.
And we had donated, some bikes for this event for children. And as a result, the bar was open to us. That whole table was drinking iced tea, water, or lemonade. Everybody else was pounding alcohol to that, and so it shifts, and it shifts fast. It'll happen much faster than you think if we can get the impact on the environment. If we can get this to people, they will naturally shift themselves. It's weird, and you're exactly right. The lower income, the more bars, right, or liquor stores. But these things just smash that desire, because alcohol is a very low vibrational material. It's called spirits for a reason, right? You can go into an old bar and it feels weird, right? Like you're like, man, this place doesn't even feel right. And so it's breaking through that. All of a sudden, it's like taking a sledgehammer to a dam and the floodgates coming down, and you're like, wow, like that wasn't serving me. I thought it was, but it wasn't. Right. And so it's a different animal for sure, in a different way of living. You just feel like you want to make progress.
Alcohol statistically continues to be the deadliest, most damaging drug we have out there, because a lot of people don't consider it a drug. And one thing I want to get out there and note is that all of AA was founded by a guy who had a spiritual experience in the hospital using a deliriant, which is kind of like a psychedelic. And then Bill W., who I'm talking about, the founder of AA, he used LSD later on in his career as a way to retrain his brain and stay sober. And he became a huge advocate for hallucinogenics and psychedelics. And unfortunately, AA has moved away from that, and they're not having the success they used to have. So we need to integrate these hallucinogenics and psychedelics back into that world to continue to have the great success that they were having before.
Alcohol is extremely socially acceptable and accepted in our country, to whereas a lot of these natural remedies like medical marijuana, mushrooms, all of this natural medicine has not been socially accepted. But at least the government now is sitting down, and they have invited it to the table, at least for topic of conversation. I think we can credit a lot of our combat veterans to starting that conversation. Like Morgan Luttrell here in Texas, who's a good friend of mine, who is, trying to champion a different, way to treat combat veterans that are suffering from, from post-traumatic stress that are, taking so many pills every single day, which if you look at the pill bottle, okay, so you're taking this medicine to help prevent what may come down the road if you're not feeling well or if you're having a crisis event. But if you look at the warning labels, the warning label it says it may make you want to end your life. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, what are we doing here? We're like, the dog is just chasing its tail here, and we're just going around in circles, and we have the actual solution. And that's what just irritates me about this country sometimes, is we always have a solution right here, but nobody wants to pick the solution up and run with it. They just want to continue to fight about what doesn't work, because that's the politics of this, and that's the game. It's like, our country would be such a better place if people just actually sat down and went for the good of the country and for the good of the people and put the dollars aside, because you can still make money. There's still plenty of room to make money in this country, but why not have a healthy and happy society, a more functionable society? Because that right there is everything. That right there is success in my eyes.
It could take years for the federal government to decriminalize this and for states to go through their decriminalization process. We couldn't wait. We knew there was going to be a 5 to 6 year gap after psychedelics were decriminalized here in Colorado. We jumped on it. Actually, we were doing it before it was decriminalized. So the door was wide open for us. Still to this day, we have not had one politician reach out to us wanting to learn more about this. It's all doctors, therapists, and people like that. But we'd love to help other states, decriminalize this, because I think that's the best way to start working with it. It's a very gray area. It allowed us to do so much research before the regulations even hit. So we've been compiling data for Johns Hopkins University. So once we get all that done up, we're going to send it to them, but we got some amazing results.
Well, and the cool thing about DMT is it's actually already been through the Supreme Court, right? And it's been approved for use for religious purposes. So this, you can go back and study this. There's been a few cases that have actually gone all the way to the Supreme Court. And because down in South America, it is very much seen as a spiritual journey, right? And so they actually went to Supreme Court, sued, and won, right? So you can use, it's been able to be used by religious groups now. I think that happened maybe 10, 15 years ago. So it's already out there. And the other side of what you were talking about is really the philosophical argument as to why do we not want to just help humanity be better? And you can go, that's a deep, deep rabbit hole, right? And you can go all over the road with it. I'll just leave it at that. It's a philosophical argument, but it's harder to control people when they're thinking clearly.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. They want to keep you comfortable. They want to keep you comfortable. They want you to keep using their products, but be functionable enough to go out and earn a living to pay those taxes. That's basically what it is here. Or to be dependent upon another entity.
I'd argue they want to keep you numb.
Yeah. They want to keep you comfortable.
Yeah.
Comfortable and unhealthy. So you are constantly feeding that machine, that insurance machine, the hospital machine, the big pharma machine. And the reason why you haven't had any congressional folks reach out to you is because a lot of these guys are bought and paid for by big pharma. And that would be a loss of revenue for them when it comes for re-election. They say, Johnny, Congressman, you're cut off, and we're going to make sure that we're going to primary you because you're showing a lot of really good, credible information to a populace, and you are very credible. So what we're going to do is we're going to make you not credible. We're going to cut you off. we are not going to fund you anymore. We're going to make sure that your campaign fails. And that, again, is another problem that we see in this country. We don't have a lot of the right people in the right positions, but I do believe that we are starting to see a dynamic shift, perhaps, happening in our country where some people are going to be put in the right positions. I just hope that they are not compromised. I have two more questions, gentlemen, and we will get out of here. What does it feel like? Explain what a session feels like. If there's someone out there listening to this program right now, they're like, I wonder what it feels like to go through a DMT session.
Okay, so what you may feel is initially is light, heavy, a little loopy, or tingly for a couple of minutes. You may see some colors, you may see some geometrical shapes. At any time you feel uncomfortable, that you don't want to see colors or shapes, you just open your eyes and everything goes away. So it's got a built-in safety mechanism to where you can come out of it if you need to. And again, it only takes literally 6 to 8 minutes, and then you're up walking around and walking out the door and you can drive. You come out of it super sober. You're not thinking about anything. You're just in the here and now. And most of our people don't see anything. You know, they don't see colors. They don't see shapes. They just get the residual effects.
Now, you've been doing this for some time now, and, you know, you have to have some sort of success stories out there. People wouldn't be coming back. Can you explain a couple of your success stories?
Yeah, we had a guy come in. His wife just got him out of the hospital. This was over a year ago. Stage 4 cancer. He had 3 to 6 days to live. She brings him out. He's very frail. Comes down. We dose him with DMT. I give him a little bit of this Rick Simpson oil to help him. It's a highly concentrated THC. Helps him not be so nauseous. Helps him get, be restful, and can help him eat. Didn't think I'd ever see him again. He came in every month for 12 months to do a DMT session. He got out of his wheelchair, got off his oxygen. He was getting ready to have a knee replacement, which is unheard of. And he unfortunately got hit by a rock slide and died about 2 weeks later. We had another lady come in today. I didn't think we'd see her after Friday. Stage 4 brain cancer, in a lot of pain. We've been dosing her about twice a week for the past 5 months or 5 weeks. And she came in today, big old smile on her face. She said her doctor called and asked, "What are you doing differently?" And she said, well, she was afraid to tell him. She's going to tell him tomorrow at her appointment. But this lady had a measurable difference in a reduction in her tumor over the past 5 weeks. Brain tumor. And that's not the first. We had another lady, we dosed her for a couple of months with just DMT, 50% reduction in her tumor in her lungs. So we could go on and on. Suicidal combat vets that come in, want to give me their dog, so they can go out and kill themselves. And the guy was 6 months later was just on Donnie's show,
advocating for other veterans to come do the same type of treatment because it's been so effective with suicidal ideation.
We had a lady come in today who has stage 4 brain tumor, and her oncologist asked what she was doing differently. And so she wouldn't tell him because she didn't know if we'd be okay with it, right? So she came in today and asked, and basically he said, without even measuring this tumor, I can tell you there's been a statistical decrease in its size. And so she's going to be having a conversation with him, I believe it's tomorrow, to let him know that impact. We have seen pain reduction in people with all kinds of different degenerative pain diseases, neurological problems. We've seen increase in cognition. This goes on and on and on. Strokes, that people who came in had an aneurysm couldn't walk, couldn't see, had an eye shut, is now starting to take steps under assistance, and has also got the eye open and has now got 20/20 vision back with their glasses. The success stories and rate, as Donnie was saying, as you dropped, was probably 95 to 99%. I put in 95. Donnie said 99. He's probably more accurate than I, but I'm buffering because until we crunch all the data, as a scientist, I just get nervous to commit to something I can't produce.
We would have trouble right now going through our data and pulling one of the sheets where I could find a negative result, or not even a negative result, a paper that said there was no marked improvement. I would guess that nearly every paper we have in our files is a very profound marked improvement of a person's mental and physical state.
How many people are you guys dosing per day?
It could be up to 40.
Wow. Yeah, because it's only 10 minutes.
Right. And
Well, we get groups too. We get like businesses that come in on Fridays with, 8 to 10 employees and dose them. And then they all leave.
Incredible. Well, look, kudos to Colorado, for allowing this, this research and development to really take place and to get good quality numbers and to prove this to clinicians and doctors and nurses and, psychiatrists and our lawmakers, to say, hey, look, guys, this works. But sometimes things that work too good, you're going to have a lot of pushback on. So I know you guys are in the trenches with this, and there's a long way to go to get this socially accepted throughout the country on a legislative level. So hopefully one day we can get there and we can begin to heal so many folks in this country that deserve a chance at life because there's so many right now. Huh?
You tell Morgan Luttrell anytime he wants to call, he just call and we'll talk to him about this all day long if he wants more information.
This is a great resource for veterans. You can come to Canyon City and drop into their store, 621 Main Street, right downtown Canyon City. And we're talking prison town, USA, right? This is the densest prison population in the world in the greater Canyon City area. And this healing epicenter is alive and kicking right here. And people can come down here, get hooked in with doctors, therapists, get help finding ways to get the medicine, and get the most expert consultation on the planet is what I'm going to call it, in how to use these medicines properly. Because you'd be hard pressed to find anybody with more experience in facilitating these medicines than the people you have sitting at this table.
Yeah, I think at the bottom line is, we come down here to shake the tree and try to change things and try to make things better for humanity, hopefully. And so, it's been an honor for me to work with these guys just simply because of the dedication toward a better humanity, right? That's what we're about. We're trying to figure out how to make people better people so that our community's better, so that that community can bleed into a bigger community and hopefully hit the whole state and then the whole country and then the whole world.
Sure. Yeah. Everything begins at the county level, and then it just grows from there, whether it's good or bad, but obviously
this gentleman next to me, Shannon, has to be given some credit here for creating a new method of extracting DMT in its natural form and keeping it on such a high level that the doctors and therapists are willing to refer people over here. Because a lot of people out there are using a junky method to get to this stuff. And the stuff people are getting other places for their DMT sourcing just isn't a clean source. So right here in Canyon City, you have a different source and a different quality of this medicine as well.
And that's where this stuff could get a bad name.
Yeah, junkies on the street passing it out at raves and things and getting the wrong results. because setting means everything too, right?
Beautiful. Good.
You need to be somewhere with people who are giving you the right mindset and in the right setting. And too many people are doing psychedelics at parties. A lot of times they're already using alcohol or some other substance. And we're screening people for that to make sure they're coming in with the right mindset, they're on the right medications, and that they're on a healing trajectory, and that their intention is to get better. Not to go do drugs and trip balls somewhere. Their intention is, how can we use this to become a better human being? And then we give them the keys to that castle to move forward on that.
Yeah, if you know, Tally, real quickly, if you look at ancient Egypt, right, and you look at the all the hieroglyphics that are on the walls, these types of things have been used forever, is what I would argue. And then you always notice that somebody's doing it with you, for you, right? They're presenting you something, and then routinely on the end of that, there's like a gift coming back or something like that. And that's literally what we've seen in this shop. We present these people opportunities to heal themselves. They turn around and routinely come back and give us some little trinket or something, which we incorporate into the building, because that's part of the sharing. It's an energetic sharing. And so I think that, to Donnie's point, going out and doing this at a rave and getting high is one thing. What we're doing is trying to make this so that it's more spiritual and so that it can have a bigger impact on you longer term.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, those are going to be your biggest advocates are your patients, and the results that they're bringing back to their psychologists and their psychiatrists, and even their medical doctors and clinicians. The proof is in the pudding or in the mushroom. No pun intended there, but yeah, guys, listen, from left to right, Shannon, Donnie, Ken, you guys are true champions in this. Really ground floor type operation. Pioneers, if you will, when it comes to this. Like Donnie was saying, to Shannon's, part in extracting this in such a clean way to get the most benefits out of this, is truly remarkable. And I know that you guys will be successful with this because it's proven capabilities to work and to help people live the life that they were intended to live. And you guys are doing just that. So gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. And we will be sure to get this messesage out to everybody.
Thank you, Calvin.
Thank you for all you do for the veterans and civilians even. And I really hope that we can get you in as Secretary of the Veterans Administration.
Well, they already appointed somebody. I knew I wasn't gonna. That was 100%. I knew I wouldn't even come close, but at least I tried.
Well, you're doing great.
You gotta put it out there. We appreciate
to be honest with you, I'm not fit for that position, anyways. I suffer from too many medical issues and stuff like that, and I probably wouldn't have been a good fit. But
you would have changed.
I just had a moment of, I think it was more out of just, anger than anything, because of all the veterans that contact me on a day-to-day basis, because people that are being paid good dollars are not doing their job. Yep. And it takes a guy like me that's not getting paid a nickel to help, provide some sort of assistance and guidance, or maybe even just carry out a conversation with folks that are going through some of their toughest times in their life. It's like, why call me? Well, because everybody else is ignoring them, so it's like, it's just so frustrating, so that's why I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make a little noise with this, because something needs to be done, and it shouldn't just take a citizen advocate to stand up for the good of the country, to do the job of our elected officials and bureaucrats, again, that have sworn to take an oath and to protect the veteran community, from all the things that they get paid good money for, and they're failing to do their job. They're letting down a very vulnerable and at-risk community, being the veteran community. And it's just not fair, to the folks that raise their right hand in defense of this country, for them to come home to a bunch of empty promises. So that's where my frustration lies.
Well, we appreciate you, Tally.
I appreciate you guys. You guys have yourself a great day.
You
You
too.
too.
Great
Take
day.
care.
All right, guys. Well, there you have it, folks. The experts when it comes to so many things, the spirit molecules, right? The stuff that's going to heal you, the DMT, the psilocybin. Look, guys, it's been proven. It's been proven to have great results with folks that are going through addiction, with alcohol and drugs, and folks that are battling severe anxiety and depression and post-traumatic stress. Why not try something different, something that could work for you, to give you that life, again, to experience what life is supposed to be, not what you think it is in this anxiety riddled state that you never really even get a chance to breathe because you're sinking and you're drowning. I know the feeling. But folks, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the program. It has never been easier to listen to this podcast. We are on Facebook. We're on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music. We're on iHeartRadio. We are on X. Simply search Today with Tally, and it should populate and come right up. Also, learn more about me and my personal story, and perhaps even get my new book over at BrianTalley.com. That's BrianTalley.com. Christmas is coming. You might know somebody that wants a book. Just go to BrianTalley.com. There's an Amazon link right there. You can get the book anywhere books are sold online, folks. Remember to stay inspired, stay encouraged, stay motivated, and always stay in the fight. Until next time for the Today with Tally podcast, this is Brian Talley. Good night. Simplify. God bless.